Hello and welcome to Frank's School. This is my 6th year, 107th day, first video of, I don't know how many, there could be 8 or so here, because what I'm doing is I'm going to give a state of the school address, you might say, for 2017. I have tended to do this at the very end of every year, between Christmas and New Year's, and very often halfway through the year, when there's been a lot of changes. This year I decided I was going to let it go the whole year. It was actually more than a year, a little bit, because last year I did it about a month early. And as I walk outside around to show you things, you won't see any green. That was end of November. I was about to have my heart worked on. And actually that turned out fine. I'm healthier this year, a good bit healthier this year than I was last year. I'm not perfect, but they fixed a bunch of stuff. So mostly I just don't even think about it. I have a grandson now. This is kind of personal stuff. That's happened in March. I had a grandson born. This is the first of my grandchildren, and of course that's exciting. It's meant that my wife has been gone a lot of the time down in Washington to help with the caring of the little boy. My apprentice, I put it in quotes still, but maybe I shouldn't, Matthew, he's completed very successfully 1 year at Messiah College in Sustainability Studies, and he continues to be a major factor in my thinking and what I'm studying and what I'm doing. There was no trip to Europe in 2017. I think I maybe mentioned that maybe there would be. No, for various reasons. Maybe in 2018. It's odd, it seems like I've traveled so much, but actually I do not like to travel, but I love to learn, and it's time, I think, that it would be well if I would go back to Portugal and the Alps to learn. I'm not going to go into that too much. The most tragic thing that happened to me this year was my goats. I might have had 22, but one died immediately when it was born because of the cold weather last year. And then the tragedy was I had 6 more that died. Parasites, I think, is what finally got them. I had not realized, and I fault myself for that. I had not realized how difficult it was to keep goats healthy. And by the time I started to do everything I could, it was really too late. And so that was pretty tragic. The goats are much more to me than just livestock. But I have 15, and I'm about to have some new ones born, I think, any time. It is so cold right now. It's one of the reasons I'm more content to be doing this here in a warm basement, because it's so cold, and it's going to stay cold for a week or more, really cold, like approaching 0. And so when I go outside, I don't think my hand will be shaking with the cold, but it's a very different time. I often think of Shakespeare's quote referring to the beauty of Beatrice, the 1st of May compared to the last of December. Well, this is the last of December, and the world looks so harsh and ugly, really, in the last of December. I wanted to explain that there's sort of a seasonal spiral in what I do. I mean, many people look at what I do and they say, why don't you just finish something? How come you're always starting things and not finishing them? Well, it's because the season moves on. It's like a spiral. I'll work on something when the season is right for it. But as the season goes on, I end up having to leave that and turn to something else that the season is right for. And that continually goes on. So as I walk around and show things, you're going to see things that mostly they look a little different from last year because I've had time to go visit that spot and work on a little bit more. In some cases, they don't look much different at all because I just haven't yet got around to that time. Pretty soon, by about February, the season, well, in a sense, the spiral never stops and starts. It just keeps going on. But the season will eventually move over to thinking about gardens and plants and water, season of water. Well, I don't want to go way into that, but I thought I maybe should say that. It's just this gradual endless, really. It'll probably never end for me, which is good. It really shouldn't. And another thing, too, you know, I hadn't written that down, but what I'm trying to build is a school. And a school is a place where you learn and teach. And, you know, if you just built it and it was done and there it is, well, in a sense, that would be a school. That'd be more like a picture or a historical record or something. All right, new online. Some things that are new online. I don't have to go outside to show you. Gloss. That's the name I have given to myself as I go up through former videos. I'm more than halfway through the first year, and I'm viewing my former videos and I'm commenting on them. A gloss is a commentary, usually in the margin of a page, and I explain that. So that's actually rather fun for me to go back and see what some of that stuff that in many ways was so much easier to teach than what I then later undertook, which was new territory. Words, also a name I've given to class vocabulary, but now I call it words, and it has become very interesting because what I did was I took words to jail, and I now volunteer teaching in a jail. And I have a men's class and a women's class. And what the principal thing we do there is words, but then there's time to do other things. And what an experience that has been. Little by little, I'm putting that experience online because there's no reason why I should be the only one that would do such a thing. No reason at all. And, you know, I started off by teaching Alle Anfang ist schwer, the German for every beginning is heavy. And wow, it has been heavy because this has been new territory for me. You know, and I have learned so much, and so have my students. They have learned so much, and I often say they're probably the most intellectually curious students that I have ever had. And now Hydra is coming up. Hydra is the name that I'm going to give to this jungle. I thought about calling it a tangle of nouns that's in my head that I'm going to try to sort out to give a better explanation of why I think and act the way I do, where has all this stuff come from, and even where's it going. So you'll hear that I'm going to tackle very soon, like probably within a week I'm going to go after Hydra. Now new on the campus, well, there's an aqueduct up on top of the hill. You're going to see these things. I actually started the garden, the Impossible Garden. I actually planted stuff in it. I had not thought that I'd be able to do that, but as the spiral went, I thought, hey, I might as well get it started. And along with it, extreme mulching, that term that I've come up with, that's what really made that impossible garden possible. And I had enough success with the extreme mulching part that I actually put a huge addition onto what is already a huge impossible garden. So that is underway, and I did not realize that I'd be able to get that started this year. The North Village, I call it. I also thought that was going to have to wait for years down the road, but no, we've started. My neighbor was interested enough in the sawing up the ash trees that have died, that he has begun and his partner have begun to work in there, and in the process that's being redeveloped, the North Village, which is an area of this farm that was just almost impossible. You couldn't get there with a vehicle, and you couldn't walk through there very well because of the greenbrier. But anyway, it is going to be it's going to reveal an awful lot in terms of archaeology, especially industrial archaeology. Fraser Mill, I started that. I had these timbers from a barn owned by the Frasers that burned, but the timbers were still usable. And I figured, well, I'll someday do something with them. Well, I've started. I've picked a spot, and I've barely started to build a mill, which I'll call Fraser Mill. The Fairfield, well, that's down close to the road, and I call it the Fairfield because that's a place where you could have like a weekly market. It's small, but anyway, all of a sudden, almost, I know what it was. It was because the neighbor said I could make that hay. And he actually went through there and mowed it. It's usually too wet and too coarse, but he mowed it, and he mowed enough of it that therefore it became really reasonably usable. and I ended up putting a pallet fence around it, and it's not finished, but that was a lot of pallet fencing. And in the process, gave people that drive by here even more to look at, because that's close to the road. And I, what's that? Never saw anything like that. No, I'm sure you never did. And I put a three-legged cloth-sailed windmill. It's down there. The sails aren't on it yet, but and that is going to be on top of two roof benches right down by the road. So that was certainly new, and you'll see them when I film. And then a masonry stove. I actually have begun to build what I always want to call a Kachelofen, which is German for these masonry stoves. A very small, fairly small one that would actually fit in one of my huts. So that stuff is new, and you'll see it outside anyway, but it's just more comfortable to show you about it in here. All right, bye for now.